We'll call this public workshop to order. Thank you. We are recording, and for most of this, it's in public sessions. I'd like to welcome Jill from Capability Group, and I think, like the rest of the council, looking forward to hearing a presentation about the future QLDC.
Of the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Little teams, hang on.
Okay, so kia ora. So I'm delighted to introduce Jill Coyle from Capability Group. So as you know, we've appointed Capability Group for this important mahi. So at the table also we have Ian Dunbar here because he's also the project co-lead for this work. And Penny Pierce is here for strategy and form SME. And I'm also a project co-lead. So I'll hand you over now to Jill to introduce.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, ko Jill Coyle to toko ingoa. So hi, I'm Jill Coyle. I'm working with the Capability Group, as Katie mentioned. I've just left local government as an employee after 13 years in people and transformation general manager roles. So excited to be here. You've turned on a great day for it. And so yeah, going to take you through the QLDC of the future and what we're looking at for the project. But before we start, it's always really nice to know who's around the room. So would it be okay if we have a real quick intro around the table and online if there's any councillors?
I'll go first. You'll be all late. I'll give about thanks, whichever one councillor. So, ik heb ook nog Erica Kaura Ward Councillor.
Melissa White and Erica Kaura Ward Councillor as well.
I am a Queenstown Ward Councillor. Courtney Tucker, I'm from the Upper Queensland and Lake Arrowhead. Q-Bulk, Araton Coral Ward.
Nikki Glenn, also from Upper Queensland. I'm living in Wanaka.
Quentin Smith, Wanaka Ward Deputy Mayor. John Glover there. And Nicola.
Kia ora, Nicola King, Wanaka Upper Clutha, first time councillor.
Awesome. Someone tried to stitch me up before this meeting and told me I had to bow to the man.
I don't even wear
So before we okay, thank you. So just before we go through the agenda, just want to reiterate this is a briefing workshop for you as council to go through the QLDC future program, and it's a response to the strategic decisions that have been made, and this is about specifically, obviously, priority one is with waters transitioning out. So today we'll cover off the project overview, strategic framework, priority one, future of local government, timeline and next steps, and any questions that you may have at the end. Sorry, clicker. Thank you. So as you all know, and you may have read the presentation as part of your pre-reading, we've got waters transitioning out. We've also got local government reform coming up, and this project is really about looking at reshaping functions and roles, services that make up QLDC, and taking into consideration what that future landscape is going to look like, which, as you'll see and probably already know, there's a lot of change coming at local government in the future. So it's about looking at right-sizing the organisation, being ready to adapt, being resilient, flexible and agile. You'll probably hear me say those words quite a lot over the next little while. And it's Capability Group working with leadership team, functional leaders, chief executive. And what we really, really want to do at the end of this program is have a methodology that is being able to rerun. So it's repeatable, iterative. You don't have to start at the ground every time a change comes flying your way, which it obviously is at the moment. So as I've talked about, we've got Waters transitioning out into a new entity. So that's a separate function, that's a separate program of work where they'll look at the functions, roles and services, QLDC. We've got the moving reform landscape. And then for this particular priority one, it's really around looking at the pressing changes and the rebuilding of what does QLDC not need to look like, and what's the operating model going forward. And it's really, looking at how we can make sure we've got sustainable processes and methods that we can keep carrying on with. So now I'm going to hand over to Penny, who's going to talk a little bit about the strategic framework.
I guess the strategic framework is just important to come back to when we are kind of, grounding ourselves in what we're wanting to achieve out of QLDC in the future. So QLDC of the future is about operationally, how do we organise ourselves to respond to all the changes that are coming at us and the decisions that you're going to make, but still in the context of what we deliver to the community and kind of who we are as an organisation. And so the strategic framework in terms of what the community aspires to through Vision Beyond 2050 and our community outcomes, the work that we do to contribute to that and how we work with our community to deliver that, and what we prioritise in order to deliver that. QLDC of the future is about how are we kind of not reimagining, but readjusting how we do that if we take out water in the first instance, and if we look at the planning reforms also in the first instance. So those two things are the kind of first phase. And so the strategic framework is really just, helping us kind of ground, and we're not changing that we're here for the community. We're not changing our role supporting the community. How do we organise ourselves and set ourselves up for future ability to support the community once we take out water? Some of that is about when we have joint functions. So you know that in P&I we've got functions that deliver both water and not water. How do we deal with that? But then also when we're talking about district-wide functions like the climate and biodiversity team, about when we're thinking about strategic growth, all the things that Michelle and I care the most about, obviously. Well, not at all. Other planning and regulatory functions. What do those, how do we set those up? How do they operate at a district level when water is in a different organisation? So we just wanted to kind of, start off by grounding ourselves in the fact this isn't fundamentally changing, what we're here to do in terms of supporting the community. QLDC of the future is just how we rearrange ourselves to continue to do that within a new scope of what we deliver. So that's kind of the top part of the strategic framework. The bottom part, if you'll recall, is around how we work. So that's the values that we as staff take into our work every day, the principles about how we collaborate and work together and with the community, and the purpose that sits behind and pulls us all together, being caring, connecting communities. And we don't anticipate that's not a focus of changing in this process. It's about how we can set ourselves up to enable us to continue to do that as we go through what is going to be a period of iterating change. So this first phase is responding to planning and planning change and water, but there's going to be a lot of change to come.
Can I ask a slight question? It's just around capital projects and contracts. So thinking contract duration, I'm thinking about the local government reform piece and whether there's something in this bit of work that you're doing now to make sure that we don't limit ourselves going forward. I'm thinking about if we have really long contracts, does that cause problems down the track if we amalgamate? If we are looking at a council building, the obvious capital project, is that it might be part of stage 2, but if we don't acknowledge that now in stage 1, we may do things now before stage 2 begins that undermine options down the track.
So phase 1 is about just how we respond to those two things, which isn't, of course, just affecting those 2 areas. But the broader organisational impacts of future decisions will have to start being considered in every decision. So the office, where we might face ourselves, when you're faced with making a decision about where we are, what our delivery model is, you'll have to take into account the fact that by the time we build a building or this building where we might all be placed, we might have amalgamated with somebody else. So that's not part of this piece of work. This piece of work is just about organising ourselves to enable us to separate water and respond to the planning changes and to create a methodology for ongoing.
It's a really good
But
point.
yeah,
And I think it will have to be on a case by case basis because each decision you're making will have different horizons and different implications. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's
It
a
is a-
good lens, got
And therefore, from a risk perspective, is it something that we can get the organisation to pull into all of our reports going
Well, I
forward
think
where it's relevant?
yeah, I think it
A
would
piece on that, a
Yeah.
transition section, risk, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know how it would work, but
well, that's something that I will bring to you separately to this, which is about the
Right.
broader reform program, how we're going to be working towards all of those other things. What this, which Jill is going to get to in a minute, what this will look at is how do we create an organisation that is adaptable and flexible so that when those changes come, we can easily respond organisationally from a structure and people capability perspective.
Yeah.
But those broader things you're talking about are outside of the scope of what this will be dealing with.
okay, thank you.
I'll hand back to, I think, Jill. Yes.
So just to, and I talked about it earlier, this is, the staff and the operations response to, the strategic decisions and guidance that come through long-term plan, regional deals, local government simplification. And, it's for the, staff and operations to, respond and put in, actions to deliver. So this is probably a scary slide when you look at what's coming through, and this just really just shows the level of certainty and uncertainty, and you can see a significant amount in terms of projects and change coming through the next 3, 6, 12, 24 months, and the QLDC future program will be designed, as I said, to respond in a flexible way. So we have a flexible operating model that we can navigate through all these different changes as they hit us. It is going to be iterative. We can't do it all at once, but this just shows you the amount of change coming through. And you'll see that we've got priority 1, priority 2, and great discussion earlier because that's exactly about, you know, what's in priority 1, what's in priority 2. For us, it's just focusing on the transition out and the impacts on those teams in the first instance. So as you'll be aware, and we've talked about it, we've got the water services entity and we've got planning reform, and priority 1 is really around diagnosing, designing and planning the next steps for the operating model. And it's got to be, as I keep saying, sorry, flexible and agile so that when we can use it going forward, not starting at the ground zero again, just, you know, you've got a methodology, you know how to use it, and can go with it internally. So I think you've heard enough from me. So what I'd like to do is go and get you all, so if I can just pass around some post-it notes. Anyone online, if you wouldn't mind just engaging through the chat, I'll give some instructions. We've got some pens, I'll take some around. You don't mind what colours you got, I'll deliver these around and then you have instructions. We've got pen and some post-its. Oh, thank you, Katie. So what I'd like you to do is consider one thing that you think we need to consider for the program for you as councillors. And for example, it could be something like, we'd really like you to look at customer experience and how we can improve that throughout the communities for our customers. So also taking into consideration all of the change we've got going on, which we've got listed up there. So what's one thing that you would like us to consider for this program as councillors? And if you write it on your post-it note, and is it Vicky, we've got online?
Just one.
Yeah. And a couple of minutes, is that okay?
So you just repeat that, what do you-
There will be other opportunities
Yes.
in more detail if you are feeling uncomfortable with being prioritising this way.
One
Or if you can't listen to one.
Yes.
If you can't, put some down. We've got a couple of minutes or a few minutes just for you to consider what you'd like us to do. And this is particularly for our QLBC future programme.
And the questions on the screen there as well.
Not quite sure what you mean.
So it's,
Do you mean from a governance perspective, or do you mean things that we think need to be,
from a governance perspective,
if we shrink, if we,
I'm just,
well, get rid of risk, yeah.
Just to be clear, this isn't about the impact on the governance teams if we
No.
co-opt that out or anything like that. No, it's your view as governance on this collective process and what it might mean for the organisation.
And what is the highest priority thing that you think we should be thinking about when we do that from a governance? And you as the governors of the organisation, if you could, we're going to end up with a list of more than one thing, but you know, what are the top things that you want us to consider when we are doing this process? From a governance perspective, considering the scope that we're talking about. Yeah.
and this is a timed exercise. We've got,
20 minutes, a couple of minutes.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
So the example that Jill gave about customer experience, an example could be, you know, that a lot of work has been happening in relation to customer experience. A high priority for you might be that we don't lose focus on that as we do this process, for example.
And when you're done, if you would like to stick it on the whiteboard. Okay.
Do you want us to do that?
Yeah.
How many are you going to do?
Oh, about 10. I was going to pick my favourite one.
If you can't limit yourself to one, you can put a couple.
Well, I'm not.
While Ian's kicking me under the table.
Did somebody write it down?
Any more?
Well, I'm not allowed anymore.
You can stick in the top line, favourite.
You know I don't do that. Cool. I'm staying careful.
So this is a, and I guess it's the question, what we want to get out of the first phase. So priority one, not the whole program.
Yes.
Or,
There'll
or
be
both.
some that probably,
Yeah.
because it's an iterative process, will flex into that one.
Yeah.
Who's got blue, which has got
Do that.
online. Online, does someone want to hit me?
No, Katie's doing it.
Yeah.
Someone online, please hit me.
Oh, what do you mean? How would you like me to hit you? Do you want me to just read out what I wrote?
No, I think Katie's got it, Nicola.
Okay, cool.
I'm just observing at this point.
John Wellington.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I'm just observing at this point rather than participating.
Come,
Joy, you'll give it to him.
Okay, so I'm going to read them out. I'll group some of them after I've read them out, and then I am going to ask you to get up and grab a little green sticker. And just look at, if you had to choose one, what would be your top priority? But we'll go through them first. So we've got core services. Does someone want to talk more to that?
That was mine. I didn't know what else to write, but obviously through all of this, still got to carry on delivering the things we deliver.
Yep.
So,
Do you mind if I write delivery in there?
right, yeah.
So is that you don't want us to you don't want the organisation to get distracted from delivering core services?
Yeah, stop picking up the rubbish.
Don't stop it.
We don't actually do that, it's a contract.
How do we remain flexible under historical legislative framework? Does anyone want to talk more to that one?
I suppose I should. Well, you mentioned we have to stay flexible and nimble and pivot. But we have never really achieved that well when legislation is governing what we do in terms of it's quite a rigid framework. So I guess that's more of a question than a.
Yeah.
But how do we stay flexible in a very regimented environment?
Yeah. We've got dollars. Does anyone want to talk to that?
I mean, that was obviously about the cost of reform.
Yeah.
You know, with $8 million on the water services, God knows how much amalgamation will cost us, God knows how much the main reform will cost us. I mean, it could be in the 40 or $50 million range, politically, that might not end upwards. And I suppose the other side of that is into the RMA reform. It's designed to try to encourage economic growth, and you know we've got to be able to measure that and understand it as well.
So from a
As well as the environmental costs.
priority for us to consider in the work around QODC in the future, being cognizant of the cost of the future organisation, delivering the future
Well,
services, like what's the dollar,
But I
what's
think
the
we need to
financial?
understand the cost of change, and
Yeah.
we need to communicate to government saying this is costing us a lot because it shouldn't be costing our ratepayers, and they might need to come to the party and support. That's probably one piece of it.
Okay, so I think that's a slightly separate thing that we can take into the broader reform discussions. But yeah, okay.
There's quite a bit of discussion around the country on that
Yeah.
information as to how do you fund
Yeah.
the program.
We volunteer to do it.
Oh, well, exactly. We want more.
Okay, impacts on local economy, reputation,
Unrestrained
or
growth.
unrestrained growth.
Yeah, there seems to be a growing impression that Queenstown's getting trashed or has been trashed. And the impacts of that on tourism, since nobody wants to talk about, no one else will ask, but the impacts of that on tourism are starting to be, from my perspective, starting to be felt, and that Queenstown is now getting a second reputation as a crowded place with unrestrained growth. How does that affect the local tourism economy?
So keeping a focus on that in our future organisation, that's the priority for our QODC the future work.
Correct. Okay. Which is a cultural change.
And making sure we have the right capability set up in the right way to be able to have that focus. Yeah. Which is predominantly what this work program is. It's about how do we organise our people and build capability.
Which segues nicely onto the next ones, which is maintaining staff capacity and capability. We probably we need any more on that. It's probably quite explanatory. And organisational efficiency. Just
I don't know if it's the same thing.
no,
I'd rather not. I can group my two together, like the capability and capacity and exceptional quality advice. To me, they go together because they were, I was thinking of at the time.
The quality items as opposed to efficiency, I agree.
Yeah.
And do they align with
Oh,
making
so-
sure we
so-
keep focused on delivery
So those,
with Gavin's?
what I'm thinking of is we're going to become potentially a much smaller organisation, delivering a limited breadth, depending on how we organise water services reform. It's how do we keep brilliant minds turning up here so that we get great quality advice and, so that we can get people at staff retentions or any of things. How do we not become a tiny council that nobody really wants to join? How do we maintain the quality of the staff and the advice that we
Okay.
yeah, and it helps us as well because we can't do a good job unless we have great advice and it comes from great people. And I guess alongside that, I'm thinking future QLEC does not look like AI and a big contractor model. I still think we need good people.
Humans.
Humans.
Sure.
I like
Thank you. Organisational efficiency.
That probably fits with the value for dollars type.
Yeah. Do you want to expand on
No.
organisational efficiency?
Not really,
Program?
no.
Thanks.
It's something to explain on it.
More affordability, cost.
not having duplicated roles or,
Yeah.
Yeah. Managing trade-offs.
Yeah, oh, that's me. Going back to the strategic framework, because some of these reforms actually might impact that.
Yes.
And it might be this model might have to change, or rate capping might say, well, you can't do all of those things as an organisation because you physically can't spend that money to do all of these things that you've got in your strategic outcome. So that's how, as governance, do we manage those trade-offs? We may be in a world where we can't do everything, or we can't do perfect, but we can do better.
Yeah.
So we can be very efficient at doing a crap job with not much money. So that's to me is the balancing trade-offs. Those competing tensions. What we'd like to do, what we have to do, what we must do, how we constantly reprioritize.
So that probably comes into the future phases where we're working through each of those reforms. And as you're making the decisions, or we're being told what to do by government, and we're adjusting what we do for the community, as that has to flow through into how we organise ourselves to deliver that, keeping that trade-off discussion live as we do that. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's how,
That is an interaction then between those two strategic decisions and actually that might be influenced by the fact you've already made decisions because water came first, for example. That means in a subsequent reform, the trade-off decision has effectively already been made because something's been locked in because of the way we've set up arrangements with the water entity. It means we have less flex to be discretionary to increase something down the track. Just a
It's about how we service the
Yeah,
trade-offs,
yes.
how we communicate that
Yeah.
we're encountering as we go forward.
Yes.
And those that we can preempt when you are making decisions that will affect this work. How do we service that with you?
Yes.
Most
Yes.
of the way.
comes back to exceptional quality advice as well.
It does. And there's a lot available. That's the challenge we found with this reform program all the way through, right? It's, the RM reform bills only really became available to us very, very recently. Still working through what the implications are. So it's a constant battle.
I think most of us can sort of envisage the change that comes with setting up a water company that, extracting it from, however. And I don't think it's a question for today or an answer for today, but trying to understand a bit more about, what that looks like in the planning space. Because I mean, everyone, all through the professional networks are probably running through that. And I think that would be good to give us an overview, but not for today. Just as to what the thinking is as to how what we do now might change over time.
Yeah, that is one of the active areas that we are working on with the CCO establishment team in terms of what do we do together, what do we do and tell them, what do they do on their own, and how does that interact in the future system.
Trying to work
But
through dynamics.
Even now, thinking of employing, if we need to take on planners, we need to take on people, what are we putting in contracts? How are we making sure that things are flexible down the track so that we don't get locked into issues? I mean, you can do redundancies, but how do we make sure people are looked after, understand what's coming through all this? Anyway, sorry.
It's not the first position to talk to that, but quite the Laura's employment law.
Yeah.
But
that's
I think
the point.
the reality is, as
Yeah.
Dave would attest, 40% of our planning work is contracted. So, just because of the huge amounts. So I guess in a way that
It's good.
gives us some flexibility that maybe not other organisations could have.
We've got that noted. Storytelling with a pretty picture.
Yeah, For me, I feel like it is, when we have to re-narrate what we do, it's defining the why, it's sharing it with a level of like openness and transparency, and then I think as well, just getting better at telling the story of what we do in order to define what's most important to people and then redefine what we will end up doing, you know, how we best serve people, essentially. Because often a lot of what we do goes overlooked. It doesn't. People don't know that it happens, and then we'll get to a point where maybe it stops happening, and then we'll have to have a frank conversation with how people translate the cost and the value. But if I think we have strong stories to tell, then it'll be the way to navigate it.
Also links into maybe how do we talk to the community about this and get their feedback on what they want the organisation to look like. We did it with the chief executive. What do you want the chief executive to look like? You know, we might be missing something. Is there the opportunity to have the conversation where they feedback to us? Sorry, jumping.
For our program, it's storytelling, communications.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think though, Cody, are you talking about how we tell the story about this program? I think what you're saying is that the program needs to consider for the future organisation maintaining and building capability around our ability to tell the stories. They're not stories, they're but you know, how we communicate what we're doing, why we're doing it, for us and for the district. So similar to Q's point about it's a capability you want to make sure is a focus of the future organisation. That's what you're saying? It's not about how we communicate about this process. It's not telling the story about this process. Yeah. But we've already spent a lot of time talking about this today.
No, really, 2 words that should have been evident. The smarter way of putting it.
Community focused.
That was me. I don't know if I need to explain.
You stand in your car,
Risk.
Oh, look, we can pull that off as just an overlay that I'm hoping the risk register is front of mind, and I don't know, everyone's thinking about that.
We do have one.
Potential fringe as well.
Okay. And then online innovation. This presents new ways we work.
Well, my first one was actually, what did I write? More about budgeting, and I think you guys have actually said it better, like operational, what did you say?
Organisational efficiency.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. I just think we're going to have, like we have it now, there's so much we need to deliver on, and this is our opportunity to be able to actually like really look at our budget and have the right size for what we need to do, and maybe rethink how we do partnerships and get more money and things like that, so we can actually deliver. Yeah, which has kind of been said.
And did you want to talk to the innovation?
That's
Sorry,
probably,
can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Nicola? So
Yeah.
you were talking about right sizing the functions to what we need to deliver.
yeah, so I
Which isn't
guess
quite
it's,
the same thing as operational efficiency. They can go hand in hand, but just
yeah,
which isn't necessarily about decreasing. That could sounds like you're talking about, you know, there are areas where we may be under-resourced, and this should be looking at right sizing that.
yeah, and it kind of works with the innovation as well. I guess
Yeah.
it's just when we go
Or
through this
different delivery
process, yeah, like really actually looking and understanding what we need to deliver.
Yeah.
Because this is our chance to change it up and make sure we are able to deliver on what we say we want to do.
Right.
So I think it's more about innovative delivery models.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so, and what do we maybe not, what do we not deliver and what the community can deliver would be part of that, yeah?
Yeah.
Is there anything we can?
Sorry, no, we have a second one. Yeah, we've still got core community goal and outcomes.
I'll throw that away.
Right away.
Yeah, I've changed my mind. I support other people's ones now. Don't worry about community goals.
Key focus.
I think Nicola had a second point.
Yeah, innovation presents new ways of work.
Oh, that was,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
Sort of,
Yeah.
you'll interpret all of these as broadly as.
Can I pull rank and add another one?
Yeah, you're the me.
So, because, I think a lot of us are seeing this, this is horrible, it's being done to us, what are we not going to be able to do, what are we going to be restricted? So how can we, somebody mentioned the word opportunity. So what are the opportunities? So what are the things that we've struggled with doing well, or we get criticised for slightly wrongly? We can get, there'll be some core themes of what the external stakeholders would love if we could be seen to do better, to find better. I know that's really hard. So how do we explore, and I suspect the staff know what are the pressure points or the choke points or the pain points. But how do we maybe use this as an opportunity to revisit some of that? I mean, it's entirely operational, but as an outcome, would it be good to have to go through all of this and actually be doing better in the eyes of somebody? So that's.
Maybe I'll come back. So part of the methodology, Jill, please just step in, since I'm just about to speak for Capability Group's methodology. But one of the things that we're doing at the moment, and obviously it's currently focused on that first phase, but a little bit right through, is effectively trying to surface from the ground up the thoughts of people across the organisation on how their roles and what they do in their day-to-day could be done differently, more innovatively. So we're looking at that's part of what we're gathering up and harnessing to really try and get all of that contribution, because we know that people that do the work are the ones that have the lens of how maybe that could be, maybe that's just some technology, or maybe that's a different way of doing it, a different process, maybe it's a capability gap that we need to fill. But that's absolutely part of that diagnose phase that's coming away at the moment.
Cool, thank you.
But part of what we want input from you on is, are there top of mind things from your perspective that are opportunities for us to build that we should be considering in this?
Right, yeah.
So where are those opportunity areas from your perspective in terms of what you hear from the community, what what your focus areas are?
Can I riff off that subject? So I did change my mind a little bit. The culture of innovation and problem solving is something that's quite fundamental to any organisation. That the answer doesn't necessarily have to come from the top. But unless we create a culture where people are happy to share their potential solutions and be innovative, and make it safe for them to be innovative, that can be quite challenging as an organisation to get that out of your workers and your staff. So that I changed my mind to that being a focus. Culture of innovation and problem solving.
We do have innovation. Great. I can't find a post-it note. Thank you. I probably know the answer, but when you think about what you've heard just now and priorities, do you feel you could put a green sticker on one for you as a councillor that you would like, that you believe would be an absolute priority? You've just talked about innovation, culture of innovation. Or are you going to say to me, they're all either, can we have 2 or 3, or can we have 6 or 7 or 8? Would you feel comfortable putting stickers up?
I think we need to do all of that probably, don't we?
I mean, if you had to prioritize, I guess why we're going that there's a lot of things up there, and when you have to look at priorities, where would you guide the prioritisation?
There's a lot of interdependency,
Yeah.
right? So there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Because if you just go straight to the money, then a lot of other things lose out. If you get a lot of other things right, then you'll do the money bit. So it's the hierarchy.
Yeah. Do we need more information? Like when we're putting in, do we need this to be? It's just a sticker. Well, that's the point. It's just a sticker.
It's a guidance for where you are I really, really want you guys to look at this as a priority for the program.
For me, sitting here, it's like, and maybe I'm being pedantic, but this is really big. This is really important. And we've sat here and chucked a few things up in 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
You're going to have
And we
another
want
session.
to prioritise, and then it will come back to us and say, this is what you prioritised in your session. I think we need to be really careful about not leaping in, because my future QODC wouldn't be to do stuff, you know, too on the fly. Like, these are priorities, they could be fleshed out, and then we could work through the pros and cons of elevating this one versus that one, you know, because there's risks and opportunities attached to elevating each. You just sit here and go and do a gut feel, chuck your number on, and then you go away and use that as the priority. There's a risk in that.
I can probably, if we flick to the next steps, what I'll do is I'll go to what the next steps are, and that this might help you. And then we probably don't need to do prioritisation because we could do it. So the next steps for you as councillors. So the next steps for you is we're having stakeholder interviews with myself and the People and Capability Group. So that's probably your opportunity to have a lot more discussion about the program, and particularly about phase 1. And then following those, there will be a paper going to the Organisational Excellence Committee with this is how the program's tracking and an update. So does that sit more comfortably with you to move forward?
I think it's almost a decision. It's quite a lot of direction to focus on one over another and then have a program fall out of it. So I think it would be better to have a paper around it. And then
I do wonder with this, just because of the and I respect your process here, but because of the nature of the things that are up there, it is more of a network. It's an ecosystem of things that need to be taken into account. And I think possibly there's some way that we could take those post-its and come back with a bit of a diagrammatic representation of how maybe these are connected and hierarchically going to influence the program. And we can certainly have that via email.
No, I think you could turn what's on the board there into a definition of success for the project.
Yeah.
You know, so that's, you know, that's your success statement. It's just not little things connected post-its.
Totally get it, because only in this forum do you even try and take down quantifiable and make it quantifiable by 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so, okay, I appreciate trying to, but I mean, it probably helps to speak more frankly around what we can imagine, because, you know, as that innovation word comes up, it sparks all these sort of thoughts that I've had previously on how we can do things differently, and how we can imbue a different sense of participation with local democracy, and how that could create better outcomes for civics, and you know, how we could create better outcomes for cost, how we could create better outcomes for understanding and storytelling and the other stuff. So it's not to dismay the sentiment. I think it's maybe that's a very impactful feedback. I don't know.
Just for the better outcomes.
Yeah.
I think you'll find as well in those interviews that you'll have the opportunity to prepare for, come to those interviews with your experiences, your particular bugbears, your issues, the things that matter to you as individuals that I know you all have, and you share carefully in a group environment. That as this is the moment to put it on the table and make sure that it's fed into the process. And those will be one-on-one with capability.
I think governance, enabling good governance to me would be something that we need to ensure.
And the purpose of today was obviously, briefing workshop to update you on where the program's at, what we're going to be doing, and probably to just get your thinking as well, so that when we do have those interviews, you've got, oh, that's right, we did talk about those particular points in the briefing, and let's delve into them in a little bit more detail.
So you'll give us some prompts ahead of those interviews to think about, like think of the questions that have to be asked.
There will be questions.
Think ahead of time. Yeah.
So then from an operational perspective for the program, about the stakeholder engagement, that's in process now. Then we'll look at future design and operating model, and any final recommendations and implementation planning by sort of late December.
I think it's important to note that those detailed designs are things that are coming back here, so they're decisions for the CE. So the update on the progress of the program will go to the Operational Excellence Committee, but the new CE will be the one overseeing the
structural stuff.
Yes. So the direction that we're giving, that'll be by that paper to the OE committee. That will be direction for the chief executive. Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to understand where's our point of.
So this is your point, and the stakeholder interviews. So we're not asking you to prioritise these now. We're going to take these. You're going to take the input from the stakeholder interviews, and they'll inform, along with the organisational input, into how this is, keeping in mind that it's all in the context of the strategic decisions that you have already made or will be making in the next wee while around water and planning with them.
So our governance, our views on, how we want governance to look under a new model, and that will be entirely relevant because that's us. That's
Well,
what
that, I
we-
think
Oh, you're not
that's-
changing.
So
For this stage one, you won't have to.
the structures that then help us. Anyway, but it's trying to get your head around what the future might look like. And I'm just trying to think what are we missing? Like,
We'll know if it's happened.
you guys have thought about this for a while. What could we be, what would you add to that list that we haven't thought about in the last 15 minutes?
Well, to add to that then, do staff tier 2, tier 3 staff go through this exercise? And do we get to see the results of
So there's stakeholder engagement
that?
interviews.
Our staff or our stakeholders?
Yep.
They're our services.
Yes, so certainly we've spoken with the LD, we've got other key stakeholders through, not just tier 3, actually some subject matter experts, technical. You'll probably know better what levels, but certainly down to tier 4, we've got tier 4s. So I hate saying, it sounds so hierarchical, so we struggle with tiers, but it is local government, it's how we understand the organisation. So yes, we have, and we're in the process of that, but right now.
Because the people who know this organisation the best where it can improve
Yeah.
are the ones working it.
Yeah, so there's probably 30 plus internal one-on-one interviews that Capability Group are doing. Plus we've got the surveys across different teams, which is gathering up that sort of input that we've talked about. Obviously, I've found a lot of the input, I know it seems quick, but that some of what's come out of today is actually really, really good input. Then you will all be having your one-on-one interviews, and then that really all feeds into the future state design and operating model, which is going to be workshops internally as well. So there's a lot of stakeholder input and engagement through the whole process.
So I'd say probably what we can commit to doing there is reporting, summarising what we hear from you as a group, and then at a future point here saying this is how it responds to that.
I think it's
At a future point in the
also
process.
important to know the feedback loop for this really is as we go through the LTP process, because we'll be coming back saying, okay, future for KLDC we think looks like this, and this is how it's responded to operationally or in terms of CapEx projects, and that's what come back into you at those decision points as we go through, as opposed to it keeping on reporting back to you as a separate programme of work.
Well,
Nicola's got her hand up.
Thanks. Hey, just given that the new CE starts in October and we've got the final recommendations and for him to sign this off around that time, is that wise?
Unfortunately, the timelines are as they are with regards to getting ready for a water services entity that stands up on 1 July.
Yeah.
2027. So
And I'll just follow up and just endorse what Michelle was saying there. The timeline, the strategic decision was made that was in service entity. Operationally, we have to respond to that. And ideally, we'll be doing this earlier, but we've tried to extend it as much as possible to give the new CE time to embed. So look, new CE starts on the 5th of October. It gives them a good 8 weeks to really understand what's happening. Capability Group will be meeting and the new CE within the first week of them starting, and we'll be up to speed very quickly on the programme. So the timeline is the timeline, and it's not flexible.
And remember that timeline is for the first phase.
First phase, yeah.
Water impact and planning reform, not
Actually, you've got a very experienced executive leadership team who is supporting the new chief executive on that journey.
can I just ask a question about stage 1, the stakeholder engagement? You've talked a little bit about have those interviews happened or they're happening, the 30 internal staff interviews?
They're in process right now.
Okay, cool. And there's also surveys going out to a wider group of people. How is that going in terms of that current state assessment?
Oh yeah, hugely informative, as has that been, as Ian said, there's stuff come up there that's going to be really helpful for us when we're looking at the programme. Really, really informative. People are being totally upfront and honest.
And when you say and briefings, is that briefings to staff about the process? Because you obviously can't really tell them anything about what it's going to look like. It's
So from a people communication perspective, so we've got a really robust structured communication plan. So we'll be communicating monthly updates, and at the moment it's very much the input and current state assessment. So an activity that we're doing, for example, at the moment is role analysis. And to Jill's point, everyone's been extremely open and willing and really responsive to it. And this is very much focused on the first stages, you can see on the timeline there. And then we'll be going into the workshops, hopefully in September time. And we're also aligning that with the WISCO, the organisation performance workstream as well, the people workstream.
Just a couple of questions on stakeholders. Are we doing any external stakeholder engagement?
No.
Do you think we should?
This is
In terms of, I suppose, I'll rephrase that because we're not going to ask everyone else to reorganise the organisation. I guess I was thinking more of that opportunities piece. You know, sort of what are the opportunities that change could bring to the organisation viewed from the outside. But anyway, that might be a separate.
Really good line of thinking. I see there's merit in what you're saying. If we refresh ourselves back to the slide where we've got the level of certainty with the strategic decisions that have been made and the external environment, we're responding to strategic decisions that have been made around this table, and this is our operational response to Penny's point about how we organise ourselves. So, you know, we've got, you know, you are the people connected to the community, and we're doing the workshop here now. We've got the stakeholder one-to-one with you all as well. So that's the opportunity through that forum.
I think as we get further into this process though, when we're, you know, more down into the future phases, I think there's much more opportunity to discuss those opportunities as we start thinking about the broader reform and amalgamations, and there's going to be a bunch of other things that are coming at us. That's kind of where I see there's probably external,
Just thinking
because this first phase is quite.
Planning reform is that we've got a very local and well-connected planning community, professional community
I think
in the district. So, you know, what would they say they would look
what I would like
first to deliver on?
to keep in mind, particularly with water reform, which is it is a really tight that we have between now and then to deliver on your decisions and to get us to that well. And there is a point at which you have to rely on the expertise and the professionalism of the local government professionals in your organisation to design the operational response for you. Yes, there will be people outside the organisation who have views and experiences that they like to share, but when we're under pressure like this, we actually need to make some changes. As Penny said, as we go further along and through other processes, we are listening all the time to shape and continuously improve the organisation. But with regards to a programme of this scale, when you are dealing with an organisation filled with people whose careers and lives are here and matter in this, it's essential that we do this efficiently, quickly, smartly. And the broader we go for stakeholder engagement when we're under time pressure, frankly, it will become impossible.
We also do have quite a lot of information that we will tip into this. So we do have that external feedback in terms of trust and confidence. And so we've actually got a lot of work that we've already done to understand levels of satisfaction with the community. I think we're very cognizant of where we have challenges, and that will certainly be it's already part of the conversations that we have.
Okay, the planning community, for example, Dave will be extremely well versed on coming through in his conversations with the process.
And unfortunately, the timelines on the planning reform are as aggressive as waters. They just haven't quite started yet. And so the government is setting really clear direction about how they want that to work. And so there's going to be limited flexibility in opening that up.
Okay, well, I guess we can keep some of our own thoughts for those, Melissa, was there anything you?
Oh, I just actually wanted to respond to what you just said, and I just in the sense that I see that as our job all of the time in terms of like, we can't just always say, oh, what does the community think? That is our job. We are here to represent what the community. But exactly, but you could use that to feed through, and that's how I think we all need to operate in terms of making sure that we're asking the community whenever we have the opportunity, so that that can feed back through this process without making it more complicated.
Agreed. And my last one I was going to do before Cody, so you talked about we'll see some of this through the long-term plan. And I think it'd be really helpful for council, because as we know, just through looking at the activity plans, they are so interconnected. It is very difficult to see, sort of on a standalone. So I think if there are things that are changing as a result of this project, as the work progresses, and they're relevant to the LTP, I think it'd be quite helpful to understand, actually, this has actually changed, because I mean, we've changed information, there's hundreds of figures, we won't see that it's changing, and it's okay to what they were in there, on paper.
No, I think they'll do spotlight.
But I think that'd be really good, because that actually makes it, you'll have to confront us and put us in a position to make those choices, say, this is the change because of that. And yes, I think that helps us see.
It's a great point, and we're really cognizant of the fact that, there are very few businesses out there that deliver the breadth of services and capabilities that our organisation delivers. There's just not. A regular business is looking at a much narrower field. So there is so much complexity in this, and we're mindful of how do we bring that back to the table. And it is difficult in a time of change, but we will be sure to make sure there's a spotlight to show where things will be done differently as a result of the reforms that are coming through in this project.
There you go. Google, I don't know. But the point I was going to make is that the sense that I'm picking up is that there's sort of curiosity of the future, and then there's curiosity of 2027, 2028. So maybe sort of reframing in terms of what we are actually looking as an outcome, because the realities of reform mean that we can't see beyond a certain stance. So I guess that's the tension that we're picking up on.
The horizon isn't far.
The horizon, and I guess the future is quite short term. In the respect of what we have time to prepare for.
Except that the horizon keeps moving, so as we get closer to one horizon, the next one will appear.
Yeah. But I mean, that kind of changes my answer, right? Because in some like if it was a blank sheet of paper and be like redesign how local government works, post these reforms, then I'd have like a really, user-centric, technologically modernized version of it that is built for a different generation, essentially, to interface with. But if we're dealing with an organization that's going to go through a lot of reform and instability, and we need to ensure that we retain great people and that we give people certainty and also navigate that with the best outcomes for our district long term, I'd have different priorities. I'd be making sure that we're malleable in our workload, that we sort of get the right kind of people in the right rooms at a certain view, that we give certainty to, staff or whatever it is. Like, it'll be more around the culture than around the operational model. And there'd be sort of different decisions to be made. So.
Well, I think that's, sorry, jumping in, but I think that's why I changed to innovation. Culture of innovation.
I guess I'm sort of with John on this idea that we could miss opportunities if we don't talk to the community. I think the people that use our services, they have a different perspective, but they have some really valuable insights that you might not see from the inside as well. So I just don't want to lose that opportunity. So what I guess I'd like to see is us looking ahead. Not we're in this stage and we're not looking. Let's look a couple of stages ahead. Let's go. What questions would we ask the community or specific stakeholders, leaseholders, whoever, I don't know, whoever, in those phases, and let's do it early, and let's send out, not proper consultation, but just say, look, we're doing some engagement on this, we'd like these questions answered because we think they're useful questions to, and feed that in. Don't get stuck in this stage. We've always got to have a view ahead, and ahead might change, but it doesn't hurt to have had those answers. I just get the sense that we know best around this table. Now staff know best and we know best how to deliver. I think we miss a lot if we don't give the community the opportunity to answer the question, and I think we undermine trust. This is a big opportunity for us.
I think the point I'm trying to make here, Nikki, is that all those things are things we will take to council. What we know already from our regular customer surveys, from various parts of the business, we get a lot of input from that trust and confidence survey. There may be some things you want to ask during the LTP consultation, for example. There are lots of opportunities to do this and looking ahead into the future, but quite a lot of this is on rails, it's legislated, it has to happen in a timeline. And I know I can see you wincing, but that kind of is the reality we're dealing with.
I just
And
feel
you have an organisation of professionals who
we're going
consider
to
operational
sorry,
response
Charlotte, just giving some direction as governance, and it's really difficult when it's but.
Well,
No, I need to on this subject, but I do need to on this subject.
so there we go. 2:00. I think there's a range of views and I hear there's opportunities, and I guess, based on Melissa's, that we should work out what those are and make sure that we can feed them in. There's governance, there's sort of if we're looking at outcomes. Yeah. Cool. There we go. What's just timeline for the interviews that will be involved?
I gather the invitation is going to go out after the workshop, so we let them know the workshop's concluded at 2:00, and I believe they're going out. So yeah. So
And then we do that online.
Yeah.
Arrange an online slot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cool. But I will probably just halt the invite just to make sure that we have captured some of the things that have come up today in the questions, so that you do have the opportunity to talk a little bit more, and actually from this discussion, which has been really hugely helpful for us. So thank you.
And we
Appreciate it.
We won't be bound by the questions anyway.
No.
So we'll just give the answers anyway.
Get the attachment. It's just got your name on.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I really appreciate it. It's been hugely helpful for us as a project team. So thank you.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have a little 2-minute shuffle around the table as we move on to dog control. Favorite comment?
Oh, do you want your mic to Ken?
Oh, yes, they could be hours. Okay. Jeepers. Oh, it's only Tuesday. Good afternoon. Dog control. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here today to talk to you and update you on the dog control policy and bylaw review. We asked for it here today, plus the team behind. We've got a team of parks and animal control officers who are all contributing to this process. And so today they're here to support us with the technical and on the ground expertise, which they've been providing through this whole review. Perfect. Okay, so today we're seeking advice on a number of key remaining issues. We saw you in April, and we're progressing a whole suite of potential proposals, and these are 4 that we're seeking your further input on. As an update of where we're at and what the process looks like, we undertook early engagement in November last year. We heard from the community about the dog control framework and how it's generally working over the last 5 years. We presented those findings along with potential options for responding to them in April. We returned to you in June at a council meeting to discuss whether the bylaw remained the most appropriate tool for responding to perceived dog control problems in the district. And then we're here now to present the remaining issues before we step through into the proposals phase, where we develop a statement of proposal, draft policy and draft bylaw. We're progressing towards returning to you in October with that, undertaking community consultation for a month, and then holding hearings in December. So just as a recap, the Dog Control Act is legislation that guides the management of dogs across the country. The Act requires councils to adopt a dog control policy and then give effect to it through a bylaw. The policy must have regard to the bullet points there in the text, generally minimising danger, distress and nuisance, avoiding inherent danger of uncontrolled dogs, particularly in relation to children, importance of enabling public access to amenity without fear or intimidation, and exercise and recreational needs of dogs and their owners. This is a rather overwhelming slide, but it shows where we're at the moment and the insights we're working from. Early engagement generally showed that our dog control settings remain fit for purpose, with small modifications and amendments. We discussed those with you in April. Generally, they are about mixed views about dog controls and perhaps more leash controls in busy areas, concerns about safety with off-leash dogs on trails with cyclists. There was strong support for protections being put in place for sensitive environments. And then we had a number of other issues related to dog waste, effective control and compliance. The insights that we gathered from speaking with you in April were that the settings remain to be generally fit for purpose, and we should investigate targeted amendments in high use busy areas or high risk areas. We have refined that and also progressed for we are investigating non-regulatory interventions, the ones that we agreed that was most appropriate for. Perfect. So that reaches us to today. There are 4 issues that we would like to raise with you today. These are ones where we've refined site-specific analysis for, and we're looking to discuss that with you at that greater level of detail. The full suite of options still exists to elected members, as indicated on the diagram on the slide. Elected members could determine to be more enabling or more prohibitive, or a middle option, or they could choose non-regulatory intervention. We still have the full spectrum of options available. In attachment A, we have the changes outlined, which we continue to progress with behind the scenes. That includes defining effective control better for our community, providing or requiring leashing during sports games, leashing on pump tracks and other play facilities, and also defining responsible ownership in our policy and what's expected for dog owners to provide clarity. So, shall move to the first issue. Oh, and for each slide that we've provided today, there's attachments with further information in the location of each site. So for early engagement, we did hear that for high use, busy commuter trails, and those with cyclists, there's interactions and issues with off-leash dogs. So we reviewed our high use and service trails in our network, and analysed them for their visitation levels, proximity to the town centre, the usage of the trail, whether they're in our active travel network, and specific constraints or characteristics about the width and seal. That analysis has refined us to the 4 sites on the slide: Arthur's Point, Frankton Track, from the section from the marina into Park Street. So both of those meet the criteria as listed. They're adjacent to the CBD, they are in our commuter network. Arthur's Point is road adjacent, so for all users, dogs off leash is sensible or perhaps sensible. And Frankton Track has extremely high usage in our network. So we have listed those as potential for changes, but we're interested to know how you feel about those proposals, the considerations that we've used, if there's any additional and any other trails that we should or could incorporate into our analysis.
Can I just ask a question? So currently you're allowed your dog off leash in these areas and you're proposing that we make it on leash?
That's
Or is
correct,
that what you're
yes.
asking us?
Yes, we're proposing
What
a change to be on
On
leash.
leash, okay.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm neither for that, using both of those trails. The Arthur's Point one has been constructed to encourage cycling. It's obviously for other users as well, but it's been surfaced as a commuter route. And the Frankton track is also, as it says in here, it's heavily used by cycle commuters as well as lots of other users. Frankton track's quite an enclosed space anyway, and had numerous times riding along there where dogs have been off a leash, and you just are very unpredictable. And at the last minute, no matter how fast you're going or slow you're going, they can suddenly move in front of you, and it just causes a conflict. And I'd support that change to be on leash in both of those ones. There's probably loads of others that possibly could be considered as well.
Have we, tend to agree with you, not being a big trail user anymore though, I'm kind of defer to others, but I know there was, just in the Upper Clutha, just looking at Facebook, there was in Hawea, there was a bit of conflict. Cody, you'll know, maybe the trail where cyclists and dogs have kind of clashed, and I don't know whether it's a problem with the dogs or the cyclists, and the other one was Mount Iron with the changes that are happening, and whether that was considered or not, given that the bylaw will be in place for like 5 years, I guess. And we think about trail development up there, and there's obviously some conflict. Whether you talk to the parks team and whether there's been any consideration of what happens with dogs on Mount Iron.
Absolutely. It could be the Hawea River track. I know there has been some community discussion about. There's also, as we see on the next slide, a really complex interaction between what's dog trails and what's ours. And I think that location off the top of my head is a dog site.
Right.
And if it is that one. And Mount Iron we have discussed as a team, and the parks team have incorporated their advice.
Great.
The trails, I understand, in their future state will have walkers, cyclists and users divided across the trails.
I think the issue with that is they might be divided as in the trails are intended for certain people. The thing is, knowing what dogs do up there, having walked with people who have dogs, the dogs just race up over the show and then they jump out through wherever, and you have no idea often where they go. And I know that's not the rule, but that's just what happens. So I guess I wouldn't, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I just say I wouldn't approach it as, well, the parks team have said they're going to be separated, because in reality the dogs don't behave that way.
Totally.
Anyway,
and that speaks to that effective control concern of the community.
Yeah.
And clarifying what that means, so that the team can use that as an education piece and an enforcement piece about having a dog within reach where you can intervene if there's an issue, having prompt recall awareness of what the dog's doing. And with Mount Iron, like having visibility of the dog and such like that. I feel like we can pass some things to do.
Agreed. Thank you.
The other thing is going to be for trails that are heavily used. So when the dog's on a lead, it's much harder to ignore the fact that it's done its business and just walk off and leave it there. Which clearly there's a lot of that as well. When the dog's off 100 metres down the track, it's easy to think, oh, that wasn't my dog. But if it's on the end of the leash, you're waiting for it, it's pretty hard to ignore.
So you're specifically looking for a steer on these two?
Yes.
Okay, well, I agree with your recommendation, mainly because they're heavy commuter tracks for people getting to and from work. and I would encourage any trail that is a commuter trail specifically, that is of a wide enough trail where cyclists go fast, that dogs should be on leashes. And the reason I say that is because there are other places dogs can go off leash. So these specific trails are used by humans to go faster than a normal trail would be. So anywhere around the network.
Are you getting any pushback from these being leashed areas? I support being leashed as well. But is anybody pushing back saying that the dog should be able to free roam and, impede bicyclists or what have you?
I think there's generally balanced views in our community that show that they value the recreation of having dogs off leash during that engagement survey. So I think we're just trying to find the right balance between providing for that recreation and also implementing more controls for those who want it. So I think there's mixed views.
Cool. I think we're all pretty comfortable with those two tracks being leashed.
Okay.
Was there anywhere else, sorry, was there anywhere else don't let this take up time, is there anywhere else that you were marginal, like we were like, oh, maybe, but maybe doesn't quite meet the threshold, or were these just?
Yeah. Which is probably a good conversation, merge it into
the next one.
Is Arrow River and Shotover Gorge Trail were both ones that came through that engagement survey. So we've included this slide here because as we reviewed our high service, high use trails, we identified that some of these trails, and all of them have been listed on that slide, interchange with Dockland and have interchanging dog control rules. And so we are raising this from the perspective of ensuring rules remain clear and easy for the community to follow. We have reviewed them and most of them remain safe recreational trails on the QLDC sections. We've in the attachments, it does highlight that Arrow River and Shotover Gorge were ones that were identified in the early engagement survey. We have got Lake Hayes and Tuckers Beach identified in the later sections relating to ecological values. But on this slide, I just wanted to test with elected members that we haven't proposed changes on the basis of making rules consistent or easy to follow, because we need to ensure that changes are grounded and justified through the legislation. But we can investigate other options, or a specific few of them, regulatory change or non-regulatory change, working with DOC and other options such as that.
So I'll start with a question. When the trail crosses from council land to dockland and back into council land, is there any signage that the person walking a dog would know that? And is there a sign saying you and your entering dockland, please be dog unleashed? Because on that basis, if there isn't full consistency, there's definitely an argument to say that it should just be consistent across both. And if the dockland requires dogs to be unleashed, then if the trail, if it's the same trail, then dogs should stay on the leash on council land as well. Otherwise, no one knows what they're doing, and most of the dogs will be off the leash for the whole lot.
Does anyone know whether DOC have a blanket prohibition of dogs on conservation land?
They have varying approaches.
Yes,
on the side of the hill, it's primarily on leash access. But
I'm just thinking of a real practical example of local knowledge. You drive from Kinloch down towards the Greenstone, and you're driving along the formed legal road, and in 10 places it actually is on conservation land, because that's where the road are built, and it's never been legalised. So I only know that because somebody had a cycle touring business and they had to have a concession to cycle on the public road because part of it was on DOC land. So I could see a challenge around how you would identify which bit of a road is council or which bit of a road is DOC, and I see the same with the footpaths, because unless if DOC had a blanket ban of dogs off leash, then that would be different. But I don't think it's that straightforward.
No, it's very complex.
I tend to agree with Gavin and John. If Jock has a reason for having dogs on leash on those trails, I think I would support what Gavin said and making it consistent, which is tricky, but there must be a justification there if Doc has justified it, right? I mean, it's a difficult process to go through to provide the justification, but potentially it exists anyway.
With the Lake Cage walkway, you mean that around the trail, around the lake, because obviously that is popular with cyclists, and it also has, some of the impacts of conservation values, wetland, wildlife, which you refer to further down.
Okay.
So was there a reason why that one hasn't been flagged as a trail that should have controls applied?
Not from the high use cyclist perspective, but it's always been part of the conversation from the ecological perspective.
Yeah.
Actually comes up on the next slide.
Yeah.
I think where they chop in and out, if we had a section that was QLDC and then a dog section, I think it would be easy enough and justified, a place for dogs to exercise in. But I think if trails chop in and out, and it would be difficult to put a sign in and say this is a solid section of a decent leg, then I would support what Kevin's saying and having knowledge.
Trouble is dogs don't read.
No, but the owners hopefully do, and if you were using that trail, you become used to it. But I do think it's really difficult if it weaves in and out. It would make sense to have it on the whole time. Otherwise, we're not supporting DOC and those ecological kind of outcomes that are being sought.
So, question: Arrow River Regions Trail. Is that the rule at the moment? It's off leash for coyotes and then on leash with dog land. Where is the dog land down there? Is this a high level?
It's
That's not changed.
primarily down Shotover River, close to the Shotover River, but it interchanges maybe 4 times or more.
Shotover.
The Carrot Junction end.
Yeah.
So if that's the rule now, I've never seen dog, well, very, very rarely have I ever seen a dog off leash down there, so who's enforcing the dog rules of off leash on their land?
Which should fall to us to manage public places. So we haven't enforced it because it has been a little bit inconsistent with the rules, so it's hard. So we haven't been doing it a lot.
Just touch on though, ultimately with DOC, like they've got rangers and huge stuff that could potentially be out there enforcing rules.
I've never seen any signage down there that says dogs need to be.
No, we certainly understand that, and that's the key with this is to consistency is certainly a major factor. I think everyone's agreeing to that, so primarily it's looking at that and possibly also understanding why DOC have got specific rules in place as well.
So your little question in the square box there, I think the answer is, I think we would like to see staff investigate options to achieve greater consistency across the trail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well said.
But I'm having a flashback to a discussion we had about speed limits, right? About which roads, and so I guess I hear what you say, but let's really try and quantify the problems that we're trying to fix rather than the potential problems. Because there will be hotspots where we have complaints and we have known issues, and it'd be good to hear from DOC what their concerns might be about specific ones. So I think focusing on the ones that are the pain points rather than just everything that we might.
Where there are ecological barriers that need protected.
Did we get much feedback in the early engagement about these areas and whether people wanted on or off leash?
Our questions were really high level, so I just relied on people having a particular interest in the area. But the first two, Hugo Tunnel and Shotover Gorge and Arrow River were identified. just to, I guess, refine the conversation, those first two are interest areas of early engagement, and then we have the two ecological sites. So they can be focus areas, and we can also engage with DOC about to understand the rules for the others. Because we're also just conscious of the scope of proposed changes when community were generally happy with the current rules, so it's just finding that right balance.
Yes.
But we can investigate options.
Just the investigation of options, this is a hypothetical, what sort of options might come out of that?
I guess one option is whether DOC has no specific reason for having the leash rule. Could they meet our rule to provide consistency? Or do we change our rule, or is DOC signage to make these sections more clear an option? Or is identifying the sites in our dog control map, GIS map? I guess it's the full spectrum. And I guess that's why we were conscious of the scope and complexity of that task alongside the other.
Yeah.
But we can look into that and report back.
That would be cool.
Okay.
Will that delay anything? You've got enough time to do it. There's no issues with. I mean, it's work, it'll take time. Does it completely blow the timeline? Can you keep it limited so that you don't blow the timeline if that's important?
I think we'll progress as a normal until we know otherwise. And I think refining the conversation to those trails that we know are high use on our network is probably where inconsistency is probably a more significant issue. Might be a good way for us to refine.
Yeah, what message? Yeah, great, thank you.
Can we build flexibility into the bylaw so that once it's done, we can still
good question
change signage or trails?
Yes, so we've investigated this since the April workshop, and council resolving location specific dog control rules by resolution is a common and acceptable approach. So we could, if we had issues, return to you to resolve.
You don't knock yourself in for 5 years.
Perfect. That would be good for Mount Iron too, just to see how it actually works in practice.
There's also the option of temporary exemptions. So we're proposing that's in the attachment about changes for pest control, or so there's also an option for short-term changes in the dog controls.
Would that be, seasonal? Because obviously Pukka Beach and various places, even on some of the Limbs land, there's a bird nesting season.
Yes,
a lot of activity has already been concluded anyway, so I'm not sure whether there's some sort of option that, whether it's education or whatever, but between certain days to certain dates, you just don't want your dogs off the leads in certain areas.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that fits into the bylaw, but
Definitely an option. I guess for context ahead of that, the Dog Control Act provides councils with the ability to restrict dog control, to dog access to protected wildlife. That's defined in the Wildlife Act, and we've got the sites identified on the slide, which we know have ecological values, and we know they're publicly accessible, and we're in the position of refining the list, and then secondarily determining the right control, whether that be no control, seasonal control, on leash at all times, or prohibited. So this work, I guess, is slightly behind the trail work, which we're seeing we're still in an analysis phase here. But we're keen to understand elected members' views on our approach to refine the list based on evidence and the impact of dogs in these areas.
So we've not done a lot of that in the past, is that right?
No, so Matakoti Reserve Archer Style here has written. So last review, that was changed to on leash to protect that.
I'm just talking about outside of the bylaw. I thought that was what you meant, was we had some powers outside of the bylaw if we needed to protect the environment, but you were talking within the bylaw.
I was speaking directly in the bylaw, but
Okay, no, that's. Thank you.
The other one that pops up potentially under this topic is when we did the Kauro River Reserves management plan, whatever it's called. The issue we have there about having that one section there of Ivan Young Zoological Reserve section is free of dogs. And the direction then was that this would be the place for that to happen. So can we somehow consult on that as well? So obviously there's a series of reserves. It was only the one at the end, the Ivan Young Zoological Garden Reserve, which was where it's proposed that dogs would be prohibited. What the appetite is for that.
I mean, looking at that list, I mean, Pig and Pigeon Island have always been off limits to dogs, I think, as far as everybody. The signs on the beach there that say, so I mean, that to me would be a no-brainer for everything.
Yeah.
It's just because of, the work they've done up there
On birds.
on Wecker and various bits and pieces, getting in. Highly conflicted, so conflict noted about the Kinloch West wetlands. And owning a dog up there. We'll come and show you around. I mean, mostly all that regionally seen wetland that was there is actually now washed away with the Dark River coming right the way over to the road, because most of that wetland was there. So what's on the RC plans doesn't exist anymore. But there's obviously a lot of dock land which is concerned.
So are dogs currently prohibited from Pig Island and Pigeon?
Not under my law, but there are signs there that say no dogs.
Yeah.
So when it says additional controls, it's making that prohibition for
Yeah, support the approach. So,
I think some of these will be leash areas. Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I suppose a similar track up at the head of the lake would be the foot anglers access along Diamond Creek, which goes through very similar sort of, wetlands, bird life areas, and it's one that don't allow you to take dogs on lead. So that's, I think that's understood as being a good compromise. Because there's very few areas where once you get into the conservation state where you can actually go out with the dogs at all. So I think making sure that we're not restricting too much people's ability to go out, but with some controls.
Okay, that sounds good. We can continue to refine that list and then report back on the proposals.
Just the shot over weekends palette. It's obviously the bit down the shot over Delta.
What was that question, sorry?
The shot over wetlands.
No, that one is below Shoulder Country. There's a small wetlands that takes you to the river.
Okay.
It's that section, isn't it?
Creek that comes in.
And there's significant, I guess another point I'd make on those is the leftmost section of the list. There's significant community conservation activities underway, which our parks can facilitate. Shotover Country has been recently seeing protected birds return to that landscape. And so the other wetlands, it's hoped that that trend will continue. So Lake Hayes is similar. So
did Southern Lake Sanctuary submit, or have we talked to them about?
We haven't spoken to them yet, but we have engaged with their team, and we will during formal engagement, but we're working really closely with Whakaturu Wildlife Trust as well.
Okay, it would just be good. I mean, obviously Whakaturu Wildlife Trust is one of the pillars of the Southern Lake Sanctuary thing. So it would, I don't know, I think they've got the capacity potentially to, it would be good to have some pre-engagement.
Totally agree that community groups are a great resource for that.
Yeah, I would definitely get in touch with them. I'm sure they'd love to have some proactive engagement.
And when we're identifying these wetlands, and I ask a question because when we one up here at Gorge Road, there was So they actually found some bitterns up there. So that's when we made their non-leash wetland. These other wetlands is their actual like, special bird life. I mean, if they're just full of paradise ducks, do we really care? But like if there is like, endangered birds or something like that, it has events work done on that. We know that these are identified wetlands that are home to birds of that nature, or?
Yeah, I guess that's been the complex part of this section of the review. We've been working really closely with the conservation groups with their monitoring efforts and also the team who understand what's happening at the wetlands, and also ORC and their advice is informing difference between Kinloch, where there are different values perhaps to Shotover wetland. So we will be the approach would be to propose controls where we have assurance that there are protected wildlife and it requires change.
Is it based on evidence?
Yes.
Line comes in, which is good. It's good data.
Okay, and so this slide goes to show our response to the feedback we got in the early engagement survey about increasing leash controls in our busy CBD areas or lakefronts. And we've analysed the high service, high usage reserves in our network and analysed them based on the criteria on the slide. That's showing us the 5 listed sites, the 3 in Queenstown CBD with high visitation tourism areas. They would also then link the network from Queenstown Garden, which is currently leashed right around the bay, and then Buckingham Green, which is similarly a tourism area in Arrowtown, and then given urban growth in Wanaka, the Roy's Bay Reserve with the dinosaur park and the trails within that area as well. So we're interested similarly here if those trails are supported and if there's any other criteria or reserves for consideration.
With St. Omer Park, just wondering how you come up with drawing the line there instead of going all the way to 1 mile. Is that 1 mile?
It does go all the way.
Yeah,
it does go all the way. Yeah, I'm just looking at the A and the green box.
It's the outline, it's the light green outline.
The white green, yeah, light green outline. Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. They belong
Does all make sense.
Used by visitors or families. I guess it would be quite good to think about as we look to maybe restrict dogs running free. Thinking about, well, if you live in Gorge Road, where would be the nearest place? If you've got a, greyhound or whatever that needs to go and run around, albeit under control and will return, but where would you be at 200 metre long area that the thing could run free and burn off the energy that they need to burn. So I'm not sure, because I wouldn't know. So I'm not sure if anyone has a map that shows what would be good sized areas for that are publicly available. So I think that's probably part of looking to restrict. We actually also need to be really clear about what we're not just pushing it on somewhere else.
They're really good for the consultation document to have something that says can't hear, can hear, and see how they.
And even if you can hear, the dog still needs to be under control, whether it'll return, heal, come back, whatever, and not just disappear off.
I think that catchment approach is really important also when we layer on potential proposals about Frankton Track. So I think, that's definitely a worthwhile consideration, and we're developing a new dog control map that can be used alongside the bylaw and its implementation, and that will help us take that view.
Because otherwise we'll just come back to there's more calls for dog parks, because actually people just want somewhere identified where they can take their pet to run around. And it's not, the dog park thing is not about the fence, it's actually having certainty that you can still take your dog there and it can run around. I think
I just checked the rugby field out here as well, that's off leash.
Yeah, that's good.
And then map, it's further through the slides on the, where it shows McDougal Street, Monica, the, is that up for the same discussion and consideration now? Just jump ahead.
Yes, nice.
If you're able to bring that up, whoever's on the, it's the, there it is. Is the rugby ground prohibited?
No, that would remain an off-leash society. Is
Okay.
great.
I was gonna say, because when you zoom in, it's just highlighted, so it's like, oh, okay. Might just be the, yeah, so that makes sense.
I think
Oh,
it's a light green, yeah,
Yeah,
that we're getting
bluey
confused
colour.
from the green
I
shading, but
see.
there's a light green.
Gotcha.
That's what Matt was talking about before.
Sorry. No, love it. Great. All good. Love it. Sure, just see it.
And extend the colours on that.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Visuals. Yeah,
Consistency with maps.
yeah, these are different colors. Yeah.
Um, our next, I guess, tricky issue is the treatment of Lynn's land. Lynn's land is in scope of the bylaw because it's a public place, which the public can access without charge or restraint. At the moment, the parcels of Lynn's land are treated as any other public place in an on-leash area, except where it's in our rural zone. So most parcels, sorry, that's a bit of a technicality, but most parcels of Lynn's land are off-leash. They are primarily our water bodies, so our lakes and rivers. Our rivers have a dock marginal strip along the sides. We haven't explicitly regulated them or provided for them in the dock control bylaw to date. Lynn's operationalised approach and guidance to date has been that dogs are permitted off leash. We generally understand those rules are working well, but we're highlighting that there might be opportunity if elected members are interested in implementing rules in these spaces for the considerations outlined on the slide. For example, the protected wildlife on our graded rivers, that's something our conservation groups have been raising with us.
Yeah.
And public safety, where we're implementing rules perhaps for the Queenstown CBD reserves. Is it appropriate that the adjacent lakefront is on leash as well? And so I guess we're raising that consideration with you today, and whether you'd like us to investigate that further as part of the bylaw.
What's the legal status of Lynn's land? For instance, along rivers, mining reserves, that sort of stuff. Because in many cases, it's Lynn's land administered by DOC. Are you aware of that?
No.
That's the legal status.
I think there might be some confusion there between ground land administered by DOC and ground land administered by Lynn's. So Lynn's land is administered by Lynn's, which is primarily lake beds, waterways, and some other parcels. DOC manages crown land, conservation land. So there's kind of two bodies for the crown, which manage the crown land. So Lynn's manage primarily water bodies and other land. DOC manages the conservation. So we can have crown land that's administered by either of those parties, or we refer to Lynn's administered crown.
I think you're making very sensible suggestions on all of these pages, and yeah, I think it would be useful where it's using, yeah, to be being very pragmatic about it. So
Right.
I support it.
I think for Lynn's land, as a dog owner, it's quite hard to take your dog for a swim on a leash. You either ban it completely from the area or not be leashed. That's the only two options in my mind, because it's extremely difficult, as I said, to take your dog for a swim. So yeah, that would be my suggestion: is identify those high risk ecological areas that need protecting. Otherwise, off leash.
I'll just point out about 15 years ago, we did have person turned up to a hearing on a dog control bylaw that provided a great solution for Matt. It was actually a fishing rod. He brought it along and he demonstrated how it could work.
Really?
Yeah, so you phone your dog on it swims off into the lake. So it was more of an expression that he felt that his access to allow his dogs to swim was highly valuable to him. And just sort of point out that there is a huge community sentiment that these lakes and rivers are places that they can exercise their dogs. So we always think land, but for a lot of people, water with dogs is pretty valuable. And it's where we see a lot of the people out in the community undertaking enforcement or patrols, you could call it, not enforcement, just engaging. But you can take the fishing rod.
What was the fishing rod?
It was quite a container or a truck, possibly, but it was an interesting one. But the decision at that time was rural was off leash anyway, so it's what it is.
Yeah, and I think if there's real concern points, then maybe to think about those.
Sure.
I mean, say you get out to the rural area, just think about Buckleburn, that's all Lincoln's land.
Yeah.
A lot of it, so, and it'd be really hard to try and keep people out of there. And there'll be other places. I'm not sure about Shallover Delta, if there's any land down there, or is it? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully SLS and DOC can work with you and identify, the areas that might be worth.
There is a difference, isn't there, between letting a dog off its leash on, say, Queenstown Bay and it going into the water as opposed to it running backwards and forwards across the beach. I don't know how you manage that under bylaw, but if you would think if you're just letting it off to go into the water, if it's swim and then it's coming back again, it's not much of an issue.
I just want to point out, so I think there is opportunities to identify down to detail where there's opportunities to become restrictions, but and I'm just jumping in, a real key thing for our staff when they're actually out on the lake beach is seeing those interactions with the lakes, and that's what we are, Lakes District. Is there a step, like you've sort of touched on, you're comfortable with the dog swimming out to the lake, you don't want it running around on the beach?
I would just say, because you've put a dog on leash rule for Queenstown Bay, say, on the beach there, which seems reasonable because there's lots of people on the beach.
Yeah.
If the dog's running around annoying people on the beach, that's not good. But if it's just going in for a swim, even though you've had to let it off its leash to do that, I don't see there's justification for prosecuting someone for doing that.
And that's how it kind of operates now, is so if you look at the gardens, it's on leash.
Yeah.
Operationally, they can let their dog off, let it swim into the lake. Yeah. It's expected if it comes back generally tied on, but there is also the ability through this, where there is the land that we're making rules on the land, geodesy land beside that you could, as elected members, make give us some direction to look at those areas where we have put in a restriction on our land to include those LINZ pieces of land having the same restriction followed. So that in Queenstown Bay, for example, you aren't allowed to swim your dog at that place, but you could in other places amongst the district. And that's sort of, I guess, the steer we're looking from you guys for, is what direction are you wanting to go?
I think it is useful to have some places where people know that they can swim without dogs if they're afraid or they don't like interacting with dogs in water, or, just sensible. Everyone needs to be accommodated. Making good judgments.
In rural with the enforcement teams, so the effective control piece, like you see people walking around town, their dog is at the heel, not on the lead, not causing troubles, crossing the road, like massively jealous of those dog owners because my dog would never do that. But if town was a leash here and someone's got a dog behaving like that, like does the enforcement team give them a ticket anyway?
Well, I mean, that's the point of the enforcement strategy, right? Is that education through to enforcement. And we'd have that conversation with people in the first instance to have an educational approach to make them aware of those rules. But essentially, when there is a rural place, we do expect people to comply with those rules, whether their dog is at heel or not. If it's a leashed area, then it should be leashed regardless. But that's the enforcement strategy's goal, is to step up the escalation of enforcement if it's needed.
I guess coming to the beach, so if your dog's running around and on the beach is one thing, but if your dog's under control and it's swimming and coming back and having nothing on the beach and under your control, stuff like that.
there's one extreme and then there's all shades in between, isn't there?
In order to work, my dog's never under control, so it's always.
But it's as enforceable as well, you know, and what can humans expect?
We need to have rules which are enforceable,
Yeah.
that's for sure, and understand where your example comes from, that you got everyone else watching that guy not on a leash and expects compliance from the other dog owners, and most people feel that they've got good control of their dogs. Until they have it. Yeah, until something happens or another dog walks past and it runs off. So there's certainly opportunities here, and I don't digress too much, but one thing I want to check on is if you did use Queenstown Bay as an example, because it is a high use bay or Wanaka beachfront, there is the ability to have dogs on leash on the shore, but not on the water. You'd have to get real specific. But because there is quite a delineation, it would be more enforceable than a piece of track that just changes over. Because you could throw a stick, let the dog come back and then clip it back on. That's actually achievable. A lot more than trying to keep someone unleashed, clip back on as you go down the track. It's quite that scenario.
Because the other comment that just makes was when you are looking into like those mixed use or those dog QRDC parcels, like especially in Arrowtown, we've seen conflict on the trails, but not necessarily dogs conflicting with people. It's walkers and cyclists, like mainly. So just don't use the dogs as a scapegoat in the air if it's not a real problem. That would be a request.
Well, that's the sort of what I'm trying to figure out is, are we creating a solution to a problem we don't have?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the point of this is just to take everything upfront, no surprises approach here. So we're arming councillors with this information so that you know what's coming in statement proposal, and we're making sure we've got your input loud and clear before that lands in front of you. So we're hearing. So,
Yeah, it all comes down to numbers, doesn't it? I mean, I'm just imagining Queenstown Bay, and there were a whole bunch of dogs that were sort of running around and going and shaking, and you know, but if there was one, you know, it comes down to, some of it comes down to numbers. And I suppose if there's no problem, the numbers are low, maybe, or I don't know, I don't spend enough time with Queenstown
We
Bay.
we could look into it further. I guess what I'm hearing is we can investigate the issues relating to the lakefront areas and dogs being off leash, and we can assess that. The
Ecologically give a little bit of high level of that.
Type of dog too.
We don't
You
have a
know,
lot of
it's-
complaints of
you don't-
dogs coming out of the water and then causing a menace. So that is
Yeah,
something
it's
that
not
we're
an
seeing.
issue.
That's right. It's
I guess,
through the
I
RFP's
guess,
data, plain before, without going into the detail of every RFPs, I can tell you that
yeah.
in general, we aren't getting those high level complaints or a large number of complaints
Just-
about that
Yeah,
issue.
and sorry, and it's just that type of dog, sorry, Mel, just, you know, there are certain dogs that nobody's afraid of, and then there are other dogs, one was on the beach that day that, you know, it would cause concern. I still have this idea that it would be nice for some people to know that they could take their kids to a certain place and there were no dogs at that place. And if you're, but, yeah, maybe I'm.
Yes. Can I just ask a question about process? So we're talking about not actually a huge amount of changes really, like just some little ones, but this will go out for consultation anyway, won't it? So if we decide that there's, let's say, the Arrowtown Walk, dogs on leash, but then we hear from the Arrowtown community, oh no, that's terrible. We can actually, you know, that's what the process, is that what the process is? That, yeah.
I mean, we just need to be really clear what the council is going out to the community to propose.
100%, and what the reasons why, yeah.
And,
That's
and
what I'm-
also be clear to the community that the council can decide this and it can make changes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I can sort of see the sentiment of going like, oh, you know, let's just do a lot more and then bring it back, but have learned from other people who don't quite read thoroughly through what the proposals are. I think that's what's going to happen, so I wouldn't be too like.
Yeah, and I guess
just
to
ingenuous
reinforce
about
Cody's comment, we're more nimble right now than we are in 3 months' time.
Yes, yeah.
Do you have another list here?
I think we can review the lakefront areas and whether that's issue. What I'm hearing around the table is it's
I don't
not
think
at
that the
present.
competition, but yeah, I mean, personally, it wouldn't bother.
Okay.
And the consistency message is coming through very clearly as well.
Yeah. Don't try and solve a problem that isn't there, and don't make it more restrictive. Just take a sensible approach. And I think the comments I've heard and to reflect, I think you've done really sensible work here that a lot of people will see and go, yeah, that makes sense. So I think it's a good place to be. So not to undermine that with something good too. Overreaching, but that's good.
Except maybe the environmental stuff, because people don't necessarily complain about the environmental stuff. You might get a few, but I would like to see us take an approach that preserves, you know, the values that we're looking to protects wildlife where it is protected.
So I'm correct in hearing that that's status quo, that you guys are wanting for that is.
For the lens
for the
flares,
lens,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
It is, yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay, I guess this is just again daylighting things that have come up through the process that we're continuing to clarify. And that you may see in the proposals in October. One being clarifying our public places and our civic buildings, clarifying road reserves. I guess we spoke to that in the trail section, that those have technically, if they're road adjacent, they're in our road parcels rather than our reserve network. And one thing that we just want to flag that came up with the LINS conversation is that we do have that rural zone, which means that in any other public place, so paths in our rural zone, you don't have to be on leash. We have no reason to think there's an issue there either, but we just wanted to flag that as well. If we were to perhaps introduce a rule on Mount Iron, that's a rural area, so we'd have to clarify that in our bylaw to ensure it's enforceable.
Right. Again, that can be done down the track.
Yes.
When things might be needed, if that comes up. Yeah, if it's an issue.
So yeah.
So the building ruling, what's the rule in chambers?
What was it, sorry?
What's the rule in chambers?
Yeah, civic buildings, doctors in the building here.
There's only libraries out there.
Well, the foyer down below would be a public place, but inside here, oh, yeah, sure.
It would be some, this would be included as a public place when the public meetings are.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one more question about something that's not in here? The rule about dog waste and picking it up, is that covered by the bylaw? And is there a fine in there, and is it set by us, or is it a nationally set thing?
National fee, yeah, encouragement, sorry.
And how often does it get used in terms of enforcement?
We do use it. There has to be solid evidence.
Yeah.
We can do it. We can do it, but it is tricky. It's usually done with, if we are issuing an infringement, we have either seen it or there has been evidence provided to us and we're confident that it is the right dog.
Like photographic
but there's or video. But there is a huge piece of education that goes on in that space from the enforcement team. And that's the purpose of the enforcement strategy is that education.
The other thing I noticed too, the last time I was on the Twin Rivers Trail, seemed to be worse here than anywhere else. People who had picked up their dog waste and just left it in a plastic bag on the side of the track. It's about worse.
The good thing with the new poo bags that Kyoto's supply is those will actually decompose very quickly. So the ones that we have, which we moved to a couple of years ago, those actually decompose very quickly when they get wet. So it won't be. But it's the old story. When we're there having those conversations, nobody's going to non-comply because otherwise, it's like, what's the alternative? There's an infringement. Of course, they're going to comply, but it's hard to always be there to see those issues taking place.
Do we have a policy or rule of thumb in terms of putting those dog waste food bins? Is there a strategy is probably the word I'm looking for?
There's two parts to that. So there's one avenue that an animal control look after, and there's one that is under the waste team. So the waste team look after the actual bins and where those are located, and they have some general rules of where those can be located given locations for pickup, things like that. And through the poo bag dispensers, we generally try and use a little bit of our budget every year to try and increase that across our network. And we generally have a priority listing of areas that people would like them, and we prioritise those from the most used area essentially to the least, and we work through that list as we go.
Thank you. Because I was going to say also the need obviously to pick up a few dogs pretty well understood by everyone. So is the pathway from education to enforcement fairly short? If there's a repeat offender.
Yeah.
What is, do you know what the fine is in the bylaw?
Off the top of my head, I don't. Is it 300? Yeah, 300.
Just for clarity around the infringement provisions, the beauty of the Dog Control Act that it prescribes a fixed infringement provision for breach of bylaw. So any bylaw provisions you put in is an automatic infringement provision prescribed by the Act. When we talk regularly around bylaws not having infringement provisions, that's more if you create a bylaw that doesn't have an Act that dictates an infringement provision. So this is a really good bylaw in the comp book. It's a very enforceable bylaw because it not only gives us an infringement provision, it provides tools like classifications all the way through to prosecution, but we've got plenty of mechanisms there, even for barking dogs as an example. While it's not a bylaw matter, the Act provides tools like abatement notices as well as infringements. Like it gives a huge tool suite to officers to use.
The Act's still being updated though, it's not changed.
It's being considered at the moment. And we've been involved in that process. The government's recently released some additional guidelines to help councils understand how it can utilise the current Act more effectively. The team went through that and sort of determined that everything we are doing is in line with government guidance. So we're reasonably comfortable. But if the Act changes, it's mainly around trying to speed up the timeframes and that can draw out when undertaking enforcement functions.
Right. Good. Thanks. Thank you. I think yep.
Oh, can I have one?
Oh, sorry, Nicola. Yep.
Am I on? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry that I'm online makes it harder, and you may have covered this, but there's just been brought to my attention because I'm in the Luggett community association. There seems to be a lot of like rushing dogs, or not that many rushing dogs, maybe just a few obvious scenarios around that community. And I was just wondering, in the review of the bylaw, if we've changed anything to make it easier for enforcement to, I remember talking about this, and you have to actually witness a dog doing it or something like that. So I was just wondering if there's any changes to make it easier for you to enforce something on dogs that are either barking lots or rushing children or something like that.
Those, I can probably speak to that. Both of those issues can be dealt with under the Act, and there is, as Andrew has kind of alluded to, there's a range of different things that we can do in those scenarios. There has to be, for us to be fair and trusted enforcers, and being fair, we do need to make sure that there is that we're taking action when there is an issue. So that has to be evidence. We don't want to be taking action if we aren't sure that there's an issue in a location. But there are certainly tools for us already under the Act, and quite good tools for us to be able to take action when there is identifiable issues. Sometimes that takes time to gather that information and work through issues. But when those issues are coming up, they are taken very seriously, and the team will increase patrols in those kind of locations to try and gather some information and further information to help us step through those enforcement steps. Yeah. But we are aware of those issues.
Can the evidence be gathered by such as videos, or
Yes, you did cut out a little bit there, but I gathered the sentiment of what you're trying to say is that can that information or can evidence be provided by the members of the community? Yes, they could, like videos and photos and things like that can certainly be provided to the team, and we can consider that. It's whether the dog or owners even can be attributed to those photos. So it is always best if we can see it firsthand. But at the same time, we will take any information that we've got and see what we can do with it.
Okay, thank
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, and shall I just